Hey guys, welcome back. Frank with Makeshift Frank. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make knobs. Now I know what you're thinking. I know that we just went over making knobs in my previous video, but I thought about it and I just wasn't happy with the way it turned out. So I went back to the drawing board and I came up with these. Bam! Homemade, beautiful, square-shaped knobs. These aren't round, they're square, so you can have an easy place for your fingers to grip. They're not made out of MDF, they're made out of real wood. Hey, real quick, if you like these videos or if I've helped you, help me. Hit that like button, subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to ring that bell so you don't miss any of the videos I post. All right, guys, let's get to it. So what I got here is a wheel. It's pretty thick, and I cut this out with my hole saw. Now, I wouldn't recommend you cut one this thick. I'm just going to take this one and cut it in half on the table saw. Now, if that's not something you're super comfortable doing, I wouldn't recommend you doing it. It can be dangerous. You have to know what you're doing. You don't want to have kickback. That being said, let's go ahead and get this started. I'm going to cut this in half on the table saw, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so now we have two wheels roughly the same shape, same size. We're going to get the belt sander out and sand these down till they're the same size and smooth. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a couple lines on this. What we've got to do is we have to take this to the drill press and drill out some holes for our knobs to have grip spots. Now the first thing we're going to do is draw a hole right through the center of both of these. Now it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but just get it as close as you can. Okay, now we need to make a line square to that line. Okay, now we're going to head on over to the drill press. We're going to grab a Forstner bit and we're going to drill these out. Okay, so before we get started on the drill press, I'm going to take this punch and I'm going to punch a little spot in each of these lines. That way my Forstner bit will have a spot to drill into. Okay, so now we're at the drill press. What I have is a 1 5/8 inch Forstner bit. And what I need to do is take this piece with the little holes I punched in it, and I'm going to take the tip of my Forstner bit and put it in this divot, these little holes. All right, and when I get it there, I'm going to take this clamp and clamp my piece down. And that's all I got to do. I've just got to drill out all 8 spots. Okay, so that did not work out good. That's okay. Let's try it again with the other one. Perfect. Okay guys, so we've got one of our knobs drilled out. Now this is the basic shape of knob that I'm going for. Now, you've seen that the other knob I was trying to make busted, and that's okay. That stuff happens. Sometimes mistakes happen. It's all part of the learning process. Now, obviously I could just go and make another one, cut another one of these, but maybe I'll just do that next time. Moving forward, now what we have to do is take a roundover bit, and round the edges of this over. All right, let's get to it. Okay, we've got our roundover bit and our router table, and we've got the height set. Now all we've got to do is run this through here and run the edge over. And there you have it. Nice, beautiful, rounded over square knobs or star knobs. I'm not really sure what you would call these, quad knobs.
Okay guys, I actually messed up before I rounded these edges over. What I wanted to do was go ahead and take my chisel and cut a hole out for the nut, and then I wanted to like glue a veneer over it so the nut wouldn't be showing. I probably should have done that before I rounded it over. I don't know if it's too late to do that now or not. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's go ahead and try to chisel out a hole for our nut and put the veneer over it and see if we can round that over. It may work, it may not. I'm not sure. Let's give it a shot.
All right, guys, so before we get started on the chisel work, I want to shout out to a good friend of mine. His name is Paul. He's also known as Gavin, aka Gavin the Great. He's a great friend of mine. He got me this Buck Bros chisel. It's 3/4 inches. Honestly, this is the nicest chisel I have, and I just want to say thanks, Paul. I appreciate it, and I love the chisel. What we'll be using, though, is my 1/4 inch Harbor Freight chisel. This is the only chisel I have small enough to get into such a small hole. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to mark where our nut's going to go on this before we can chisel it out. The best way I found to do that is to take the bolt you're going to use and thread it through here. Then attach your nut to the other side and take a pin and mark the outline of the nut. So let's go ahead and get that started. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get the nut started. Just keep working with it, just keep pushing with it, and eventually it'll go through. The bolt will act like a tap, and it will cut threads on the inside of your knob. There, now it's threaded all the way through. You've got to be careful because it will chip out, but since we're going to try to cover this end in veneer, it should be okay. Now we've got our bolt threaded through there. All we need to do is take our nut and screw it down. Get it tight so it doesn't become loose. And then mark the outline with an ink pen. Now when we take our nut off, you can see the outline of the nut drawn perfectly on there. Now all we need to do is chisel that out. All I'm doing is chiseling this out. I'm putting my chisel right up to the line, hitting it with my mallet, and I'm continuing like that until the hole is deep enough for the nut to sit completely inside the knob. All right, let's do it. Now it's done. All it has to do is be deep enough for the nut to sit all the way inside of it. You don't want it protruding out the top because we're going to cover this in like a veneer. Now it is a good idea to make sure the nut fits all the way in it. So here's the nut. I'm going to line it up, and there it sits flush all the way down in there. Looks pretty good. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is attach our nut inside our hole. Now, I like to use super glue. I just fill it full of super glue and take my mallet and put it in there. But you could use epoxy. There's probably other things you could use, but my preferred method is super glue. So let's do that. Okay, so now you can see it's full of super glue. We're just going to take our nut and put it inside there. Just going to take our mallet and a block of wood and make sure it's seated all the way. Okay, it's in there all the way. Now we need to cut our veneer so we can attach to it.
Okay, so I've got my blade raised. It's about 1/4 of an inch from my fence. I'm just gonna try to take this board and run it through and shave off a little veneer. All right, let's try to do that. Now, we have a good piece of veneer we can work with. Okay, now we got our belt sander. We're just going to take this piece and try to smooth it out a little bit. There, I think that'll be good enough. Now this is all pine, or spruce or fir, some kind of softwood. And it's all been reclaimed and salvaged. And it's hard to even find a piece that doesn't have splits in it. So I don't know if you can see this right there, but there's a little split. I think that's going to be fine. It doesn't go all the way through. Well, it kind of does. But I'm going to stabilize this with some super glue. That and the fact that we're going to glue it together, I think it'll be okay. There, this should be fine. Now we're just going to take this while it's still wet and just hit it with some sandpaper. This is just some rough 40 grit sandpaper I have. There, much better. Okay, now what we're going to do, we're just going to put our knob on here, see how big we need it, and just mark it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just need to know how much I need to cut off on the table saw. There. Okay, so we got our knob on here. I'm just going to put a couple of rough marks on it so I can see where it goes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put wood glue on this. Now that's going to give it that real strong bond. And I'm also going to put a couple drops of super glue. That's just to get it to bond instantly. And the wood glue, where it has moisture in it, will also act as an activator for the super glue. And it should dry instantly, or nearly instantly. All right, let's do it. Okay, so we've got it on there. Now we're just pushing as tight as we can for about 10 seconds. All right, I guess that's good. Now we're just gonna let it dry. And when it's dry, we'll come back and we'll try to route over the end of it. We also need to put a hole through this end for a bolt to come through. All right, guys, so what I'm gonna do is while this is still wet and drying, I'm gonna cut this down here and I'm gonna put 4 clamps on it. I'm doing that because this little piece of veneer is kind of warped. You can see it's shaped like a U, and it's not really making good contact everywhere. I'm just gonna use this block of wood to extend my miter gauge. Because this is so short, I can't really get it all the way out there and get a good stable cut. Okay, so I've got my pieces here, and I've got my clamps. I was going to use these big long clamps because I thought that's all I had, because I forgot that I got these C clamps that I just recently picked up, so I'll go ahead and use these. Now, I'm not going to clamp these C clamps down tight. I don't want to mar my wood. I'm just going to make it to where it has pressure between the 2 points of contact. There. Now everything looks good. All right, guys, here it is. It's been about 6 hours. It's probably not completely dry. I think it takes wood glue like 24 hours to completely cure. But I want to go ahead and try it anyway. Let's try it and see what happens. I'm getting impatient. All right, guys, so here's our piece. We're going to go ahead and drill that out with a Forstner bit. That way we don't have so much to cut out on the router. Okay, so you can see this did not turn out very well. I'm hoping I can sand that down. That's pretty severe. I think my bits are getting dull. I don't know, but it held together, so that's good. All right, let's try to run it over on the router. Okay. So that was a terrible idea. Let's see what else we can do to it. Okay, so that was all failure. This was a terrible idea. Okay, so I only know one more thing to do. Start over again, completely from scratch. All right, let's do it. All right, guys, so here we are. We're back, and the glue should be good and dry. Let's check it out and see. Looks good to me. All right, so we got a 1/4 inch laminate trim bit with a bearing, and we're going to use this just to make it flush all the way around. Honestly, I should probably cut all this extra waste off, but I'm going to try it and see what happens with this. All right, so I went ahead and used my flush trim bit on these. Unfortunately, my camera wasn't recording. I'm sorry about that. It did a pretty good job, except that it did chip a little bit out right here. Also, there's a split that's appeared in this. I hope it's not an issue. I'll probably have to put super glue in it and stabilize it. In here, I got a 1/4 inch Roundover bit.
Okay, so they didn't turn out perfect, but they turned out fairly okay. You can see on this one here, it did tear out. That's kind of ugly. And this one turned out really nice, except for the tear out right here. Now, I might be able to sand that down and make it look better. I'm not sure. Okay, so now I have a 5/16 inch brad point bit in my drill press. I'm just going to drill the back side of this out. I have this piece of wood down to help me with tear out. Beautiful. Okay, now let's just sand them up a little bit. Okay, now we're going to take our tap and die, and we're going to tap into this to get the threads through this. You could probably use a bolt, but I don't want to risk it and risk messing it up. Okay guys, check this out. So this is it. These are the knobs. I'm pretty proud of them. They're not perfect by any means. Like I said, there's some chip out here. Maybe that's just because I used pine. Maybe next time I can make them out of oak. I'm not sure. But the point is, these are the knobs. And check this out. Tell me that ain't awesome. Okay guys, so I'm just going to take you over the steps of us making these knobs. The very first one we tried to make was this. We didn't even get the holes drilled out. All right, so the next one, I messed up and rounded it over before I put the veneer on it. And that did not turn out well. All right, and then the next one, much better, 10 times better. Turned out exceptionally well, except for the tear out or the chip out and just a few places. But that's how it went. Went from this to finally this. But like I said, it's a learning process. Just because you don't make it right the first time doesn't mean give up, doesn't mean it's a failure. You learned and you know for next time.